Have you heard? You probably heard that LinkedIn is becoming a scamming website, especially if you are a Web3 developer and you are receiving strange job offerings from that website. Let's look at it together. Let's see how the scam works and how you can prevent from being a victim. Hi everyone and welcome to another Caffe. So recently it seems that the scammers are turning to LinkedIn to try to scam the developers of the Web3 world, so developers that work on the blockchain, on NFTs, tokens, what have you. And the pattern of the scam seems to be always the same. It's a bit in between phishing and supply chain attack. It generally works this way. You are on LinkedIn, you have a notification that somebody contacted you, and this contact is probably an HR or a CEO of a big company. They look at your profile, that your profile is amazing and that you did an astonishing job, and they are just in the need of somebody exactly like you because they have an issue with a project that they cannot get developers to work on. So you are exactly the best fit they can find to help them solve the problem. And they promise you a six-figure paycheck in order to work with them, and the work surprisingly seems to be very dumb and very simple. But there is a catch because they are in a hurry, they need to find somebody very quickly, and they would really love to have you on board. So in order to speed up the things while they try to schedule a talk, an interview with the CTO or the CFO to what have you, they want you to download a GitHub repo, which is the project that you will be working on, in order to have a look at what you will be doing so that you can say if you are up to it or not, and so on. So they want you to download this repository from GitHub, and if you do that, and if you install the software, and if you run the software, and if you try to look at the software, you're done. Because what happened is that in those lines of code somewhere there is some malware that was put there exactly to do basically two things. One, look for all your cryptocurrencies in case you have password txt files or seed phrases lying on your hard disk in clear or other stuff, or if you need to connect to the application, like connecting your wallet to the application, and maybe they ask you to sign some strange transaction in order to prove that you are really you and that you are really doing what you name it. So they want you to sign a transaction. So in one of those two cases, probably your funds are going to be lost. And the reason is pretty simple, because in the software of that Git repository, there is either a deprecated library or a library that was already containing some sort of malware, or the code of the project was containing some malware somewhere. So basically this is a supply chain attack. So they provide you with some code, they want you to run it, you run it on your system, and if you do, your funds are gone. That's pretty it. But what can you do to spot that this is a scam and not fall for it? Well, there is a lot of things that you can do, because there are a lot of red flags all along this path. The point is that probably people prefer to ignore them. And the first one is no proper company will ever contact you for a job like that in this way. And if they do, they probably are not a proper company. I mean, if a company is looking for a developer for a six-figure salary and they need to do crazy important things on a protocol or on a video game or whatever, they don't just go randomly on LinkedIn looking for people and trying to contact you to do some job for them. It doesn't happen. You have to go through an HR. Probably in the beginning they will not give you too much details because there is an IP involved and other stuff, and probably you need first to have a chat with the CTO, or, well, let's say that the regular recruiting process does not work like this. The second part is they ask you to download software. You know, repeat after me, you know that you shall not download software and run software on your machine unless you know what you're doing. Even if in this case it is open source, but it's a particular type of open source because it's crafted exactly for you. And how can you spot this? Because probably in the Git repository there is no activity at all. So it's not like a regular open source project. It's basically a scam project which has no history, no previous comments, and basically looks like it was popped up like this. Another red flag is the profile of the person which is contacting you. Usually those profiles don't post, and they've been active for years, but they never posted once. Why? Because making a fake post is harder than making a fake profile. In a profile you can add all information whenever you want, and that's it. The post that you make on LinkedIn, they have a timestamp, and it's LinkedIn itself that it's putting the timestamp on the profile, so on the post. So it's very hard, and you have to work a lot of time in order to make a profile with a history of posts, unless, which is another case, they still the profile of somebody which maybe was not using two-factor authentication or any other secure measure. So they either might be fake profiles or stolen real profiles. But going back to the repository, one thing that you can do is look at the code itself. Usually there is a README in that repository, and you can pick some specific phrase on the README, some peculiar phrase, and try to look for that phrase on Google, search for the same sentence on Google, and it happened to me already 4 times, I guess. It brings you to the real repository, because what those scammers usually do is they get a real repository, they don't clone it, they download it and then re-upload it, and the uploaded versions contain the malware, but they keep the same readme files and everything. So if you happen to find the original code, you have the original code and the copy code. And one nice thing that you can try to do is compare the two codes and look where there is the bug, where they put the malware. Usually as I see, then they probably hide it somewhere in some file which is 1,000 lines of code, then you have 500 white lines, empty lines, and then they put the code at the end of it, because usually you don't scroll that much. Or another thing that they do is, which works better, is hiding it on, let's say, on the right hand side of the code, meaning that on the last line they leave maybe 200 white spaces to move the code on the right, and after that you have, a single line, you have all your code which is minified JavaScript or encrypted JavaScript that you cannot understand. So this scam is very common. It happened to me at least 4 times in the last month, and it happened before, but they are intensifying the attacks. It's very easy to spot if you look at the right things, and of course if your ego allows you to see that probably nobody actually looking for you. But this comes allows us to learn something that can help prevent being victim of those scams, and maybe a lot of others. The simple suggestion is try to keep your systems air-gapped. So if you are a developer, you probably have a development setup and a personal setup, or a personal device and a development device. This is usually a good thing to do, because you may have your personal laptop where you look at Netflix, you look at your bank account via home banking, you go on your exchanges, you have your wallet, you have everything. That's your computer. It's not your work computer. Then you have your work computer, which is where you have the libraries, where you have Docker installed. Where it's another setup that you can probably format and reinstall every week. You don't care, because the important part of your life are on one system, the other part of your work are on another. You don't mix the two things. As well as you don't mix the environments you work on, you should not mix the wallets, meaning that if you work on the Web3 space, you should have one wallet which is just for the development part. This wallet probably will have access to all the test nets that you are using, but there is no reason to have on the same wallet the keys that you use for your real funds, so for your real Bitcoin, for your real tokens, NFT, what have you. So you have 2 wallets. One is the real personal wallet, the other one could be the development wallet, which could be MetaMask, a software wallet, anything, even something with less security, because in the end they're just testnet tokens which have no value. So so long story short, scam come from all possible ways and try to target you, but remember, no proper company ever recruits a developer this way. The good thing is that it's very easy to spot those scams probably in a couple of weeks they will die, because as the word gets out, and since they have so copycat one of the other, they will either change completely the scheme, or they will try to a completely different scheme. And the good part is there is always a lesson to be learned, and in this case, hair gapping your systems is the lesson. So if it happened to you, write me down in a comment. If you have any other better idea, if you have a story like this to share, please write down in the comment. Let's talk about it together. And for what concerns us, see you at the next coffee. Bye.